What's up, family? This is Kristen Smallwood, and you're listening to the Thrive with Joy podcast, a special space I've created for us to come and reason together. Each week, I share life lessons and stories that challenge our perspective on how we're managing the relationships with ourselves, God, and others. I'm even inviting some special guests to help us unpack insights on how to experience lasting, harmonious bonds that abound in grace, forgiveness, and love. Let's get into it. What's up, family? Thank you for joining me back in the room for another episode. Before we get into today's story, I just have to pause and say thank you to everyone who has taken the time to listen, share, and comment on season 1 of the Thrive with Joy podcast. Whether you listen to it on your commute to and from work, right before settling into bed, or utilize some of your downtime to lend an ear to hear what God had given me to share for that week, I really appreciate the support and hope that something that was shared blessed you in some way. I'm still learning from these stories myself, so hearing your feedback on the episodes brings out new perspectives that I would have never thought of and allows us to continue to grow together. I'm already deep into planning episodes for season 2, which you'll hear more about in the coming weeks. But for now, let's jump into the story for our last episode of season 1. So, I have always been one of those people who never really latched on to the latest trends and fads. I've always liked being a little different and finding a way to stand out from everyone else. Even as a kid, I was not one to be easily influenced to do something just because everyone else was doing it. Even when it came to something as simple as music. If there was a song that I really liked and I thought other people weren't really feeling it, it made that song that much more special to me because it made me feel like I was listening to something that was a unique find that only I was privy to. The moment I found out a bunch of other people also enjoyed that song, I would immediately stop liking it. It was like the appeal was gone because it had become a common thing. That's probably why I haven't switched over to an Apple phone yet. It drives my friends and family crazy. They hate the fact that I am Team Android, and I will not switch over so they can FaceTime me and easily share stuff with me in the cloud. I have no desire to do that, mainly because that's what they want me to do. I am perfectly okay with tearing the group text up and making it hard for them to share photos and videos. I don't care. Figure it out. I like being different and having a unique story that is specific to me. Which is why I was a little troubled one day by this young lady who participated in this leadership development class that I was hosting. So I had given the trainees an assignment to build a vision storyboard because I wanted them to put real images to the things that they saw themselves accomplishing in their mind so that they could have a visual reminder of what it was they were aspiring to do. These visual reminders were supposed to help them build confidence and believing that the mental pictures were not just something that they were dreaming about, but it was something that was attainable and within their reach, right? They were supposed to bring those visuals back the next day so we could discuss how to create some goals and action plans around what they wanted to accomplish so that we could translate those ideas into reality. Now, after the first class, one of the trainees came up to me and was telling me how one of the things she really wanted to do was to go back to school and get a degree because something that had always troubled her was the fact that everybody she worked with had degrees. A lot of them also had additional certifications within their field, and some even had master's degrees. And she felt like she didn't quite measure up to her peers because she didn't have some of the education and knowledge that they seemingly had. So she was like, I really struggle with that sometimes. I feel like even when it comes to time to take advantage of opportunities or sign up for extra projects, like I'm hesitant to do it because I'm not the most qualified person on the team. So I often don't raise my hand. I don't volunteer for extra stuff because I'm like, listen, they can pick somebody else who's so much more qualified than me. So why waste my time trying? So she said, on my vision board, I want to put an image of a school or someone graduating on my board so that seeing that image will help motivate me to pursue that goal so I can be as accomplished as my colleagues. What do you think about that? I said, okay, if that's really what you want, then absolutely put it on your board. But If I'm honest, I think you're looking at this totally wrong. School requires way too much money, way too much time for you to only do it so that you can be like everybody else. It might be enough inspiration to get you started on that journey, but it's going to take a deeper motivation for you to really see that goal through. I said, I think what is happening with you is that you're so busy trying to craft your story into one that looks like everyone else's that you're missing the beauty in the story that you already have. Think about it. If it's true that everyone you work with has all of these degrees and all of this education, and they have paid thousands of dollars for, and you only have a high school diploma and a couple years experience, why are you intimidated by people who ended up in the same role as you, making the same money as you, getting the same experiences as you? If anyone should be mad, it should be them. I'm sure they're like, you mean to tell me I didn't need all this to get this job? I told her, I said, you're trying so hard to appear credible to people who had to be trained the same way you were trained, who are working the same accounts with the same clients you're working. I said, you're trying to prove that you are as valuable as people that you're already sitting at the table with. Not only are you sitting at the table with them, but many of them you have already surpassed because you're in this leadership class. The only people in this class are people who were identified by their direct manager as high performers with leadership potential. Look around. Tell me, how many of your colleagues are in this class with you? What that says to me is that you must be doing something right for your manager to acknowledge your potential and have you assigned to this class to grow and develop that potential. So, who's really winning? Your vision has to be bigger than where you currently are. I told her, if you're only setting a goal to go to school to prove that you deserve to be at the level you are currently at, that's a waste of time. If you go back to school, it should be in preparation for the next level you're trying to get to. Meaning that education you're looking to pursue should be a requirement for whatever your next career move is. If it's not, you're putting your energy in the wrong things. You're trying to compete in a race where there is no competition. It sounds to me like you've created your own lane and no one else is in it but you. So why do you keep looking around trying to compare your life to everyone else's? Focus on your journey. Celebrate the fact that you're doing what it took others twice the education and money to do. I said, I'm personally more impressed by your story. Like, you have something that money and education couldn't get you. It's called favor. Don't waste your favor trying to fit into other people's story. She was like, wow, I never looked at it like that. I was like, you better start because you're winning. Take the win and stop trying to be everybody else. That young lady was so blinded by what she thought she needed that she couldn't see what she already had. But I can empathize with her because we've all been there, right? We've all looked at someone else's life and said, man, I would love to be in their position or have what they have or be able to do what they do. Most of the time, we make those comments without having any real insight into what it took for those people to have what they have, do what they do, or be in their current position. If we did have that information, most of us would want no parts of their success because we are not equipped to handle their load. We don't know what it took for them to get where they are, and we definitely don't know what it takes to maintain that status. Why do we do that? Why do we allow ourselves to get caught up in this dangerous game of comparisons and become blindsided to the path that has already been laid out for us to obtain our own levels of success? We've all been there. We've been scrolling on social media and seeing pictures of people who appear to be living their best lives. They're vacationing all across the world, showing off their new cars and homes. Their families seem to be thriving. Their marriage looks like it's getting better and better. Their kids are looking like stellar students and athletes. Even the dog seems to be flourishing. And we've thought to ourselves, why can't that be me? What am I doing wrong? Why is my life seemingly so hard and things seem to be so easy for them? Then we go down this emotional rabbit hole of sulking and feeling sorry for ourselves and trying to pick apart their stories and their posts to see how we can catch them in a lie, to prove their lives are not as great as they make them seem, just so we can feel better about our own. It's a vicious cycle, one that never ends well. Here's the truth. Not every couple that's seen wearing matching PJs is in love. And not every selfie of someone smiling on vacation is capturing a portrait of someone that lives in peace. Instead of focusing on other people's lives that we don't even fully understand, we have to get busy addressing the internal war we are having with ourselves. You know what I'm talking about? The battle between who we were, who we are, and who we want to be. The me versus me war that we're constantly engaged in, the fight to accept who we were, understand who we are, and prepare for who we want to be. Recently, I attended a celebration of life ceremony for someone who I feel like really mastered the battle of understanding who they were and who they were called to be in one of the most gracious ways I've ever seen. One of my spiritual mothers, who I had the pleasure of knowing for over 23 years, passed away. She was a woman full of grace and integrity, whose life spoke volumes to what it means to walk in faith. She was not only the first lady, but she was a ministry leader and she was a mother to many. Given the position she was in, it would have been easy for her to get lost in comparison to other women in similar positions and lose sight of who she had been called to be. But unlike my trainee, this woman stood proudly on the fact that though she may sit at the same table as some of her colleagues, her unique journey was definitely a differentiator. She had survived cancer 4 times and up until her last moments maintained her stance that she believed God, that every part of her life had been carefully curated by Him for a specific purpose. At the end of her homegoing service, her family played a snippet of a video where she talked about what it meant to stay focused on the journey that had been orchestrated for her. Here are a few lessons I learned about embracing your unique journey from not only her life, but her final message. The first lesson I learned was that you have to get clear on what your assignment is. The great mother stated that she believed she had been called to be a helpmeet. By definition, that is a woman who is a suitable helper or companion to their husband, but the actual task is so much greater than just being a means of support. The characteristics and traits required to serve in that capacity effectively are not easily found in the average person. The mother talked about how she found herself watching and studying the ways of her first lady, not really understanding at the time why she was so drawn to her and inspired by how she handled people. It wasn't until she became a first lady herself that she understood that her points of observation were preparation for the position that she would one day hold. Once she was clear on what her assignment was, she was able to put what she had learned and observed into practice to not only help her husband and family, but all those who would be drawn to their ministry. Every battle with cancer was an opportunity to practice faith in action so she could exemplify God's healing power and help people understand how real faith works. So, what's life been preparing you for? Think about it. What themes keep reoccurring in your life? What battles do you seemingly keep facing? What dreams keep reappearing that you just can't seem to shake? What desires keep tugging at your heart that you can't seem to ignore? All of these things are intended to help unveil those key things God has ordained as a part of your unique story. When I was a kid, I used to pretend I had a whole class of imaginary people that I was teaching. And I would sit in that room and give every kid in my class a name. Each kid had a unique story surrounding their life. I knew who their parents were, whether or not they were going to cut up in class, how they were likely to respond to an assignment I gave them. I created a whole world around teaching these kids. My mother would walk in and be like, "Who are you in here talking to?" I'd be like, "I'm talking to my students, and they're trying to figure out why you are interrupting our class." Like, I'm sure she would walk away thinking there is something seriously wrong with my daughter. But what neither of us really understood in that moment was God was preparing me for the life I currently live. where I teach and train and stand before audiences and speak boldly to people I have never seen before because I've been preparing for those moments all my life. God was using my imagination all those years ago to help me practice becoming the woman I am today. That's why it's important to get clear on what your assignment is so you can recall and leverage the training and the experiences that He is already taking you through to prepare you for whatever moment you're in right now. That student from my class who wanted to pursue her education, just so she could feel equal to her colleagues, didn't even realize that whatever knowledge she needed to get to where she was going, she already had it at her disposal. She was too busy trying to be like everybody else on her team instead of just staying on the path that had already been carved out for her. We have to be intentional about being students of ourselves so we can understand how all of the things in our life are designed to work together to propel us into our future. Go back and replay those key moments in your life and ask yourself, what was I supposed to take away from this moment? What was it preparing me for? What does it reveal about what my true assignment is? What has it developed in me that will help me complete that assignment? The second thing I learned from the Great Mother was that once you're clear on what your assignment is, you have to get busy doing it. There's a quote by William Penn that says, "Time is what we want most, but use worse." I have a bad habit of procrastinating. Listen, if you give me a task and tell me it's not due for 5 months, I will wait until the 4th month and the 29th day before I start working on that task. I can't tell you why I do that. I have somehow convinced myself that I work best under pressure. And if I start that task too early, I won't be able to land on my best idea. I know it's ridiculous. I've seen the negative consequences of wasting time and procrastinating. There was this book that I had in my heart to write. I had an image of the book cover, the title. I even knew exactly how the opening lines of the first chapter would start to grab the audience and reel them in. When I first got the idea, I drafted a rough outline of the chapters that I wanted to include. The first paragraph of the chapter 1, and then I didn't do anything else for 7 years. Did you hear what I said? 7 whole years I sat on that book. Didn't write one additional word, but I kept telling people that I was working on a book. I even shared the title of the book with a couple people. They were excited. They couldn't wait. 7 years later, one of the people I shared the title of the book with came to me and said, "Hey, weren't you working on a book?" I was like, "Yes, I'm still working on that book. Yes, thank you for reminding me." And they was like, "Tell me again what the title is." So I told them what the title was, and they was like, "Yeah." So I saw that book on Amazon, recently got published. I was like, "What?" I went to Amazon, typed in the title, and sure enough, not only had the book been newly published, but the exact same book cover that I had imagined in my head is what the author had used. I went to YouTube and I found out that they had not only launched a book, but they were launching a book tour and was touring this book around the world, making money, talking about my book. Insert palm on face emoji. Like, what could I do? God had given me ample time to get that book out, and I chose to sit on it. I thought I had time. I thought I could do it whenever. I learned a very valuable and painful lesson through that experience. When God gives you something to do, you have to act on it immediately. He'll give you space of time to act, but when He realizes that you refuse to be obedient and release what He has given you, He will give it to someone else to do. And all of the blessings and all of the benefits attached to that assignment will go to that other person. The Great Mother was smart enough to utilize her time here on earth wisely. She left empty, having completed all of her assignments, leaving nothing left for other people to have to pick up on her behalf. I was trying to help that trainee understand the value of not pursuing things that may not be in alignment with the assignment for her life. The time she would have spent chasing after a degree for the wrong reasons would have been time she could have never gotten back. So we have to get busy following our course and leave everyone else to follow theirs. The last lesson I learned from the great mother was to enjoy the journey. She talked about the benefits of being obedient to the things that God will have you to do. She talked about how much of a pleasure it was to be able to serve and support her husband and family and ministry. She acknowledged that every day wouldn't be a good day, but even on the bad days, there's some comfort in knowing that you're still following your unique course. Like so many others that knew her, I will sincerely miss the great mother Alice B. Washington. But I don't have to miss the lessons she shared. I can celebrate the favor that God gives me when I arrive to the destination in a different way than everyone else. I need to follow in her example and be so busy doing God's will that I don't even notice what others are or aren't doing. The most selfish thing we can do is not become who we're supposed to be, because somebody is waiting for us to show up as our unique and authentic selves so they can feel inspired to do the same. Mother understood that, which is why she gave herself so unselfishly. Listen, comparison is the thief of joy. So as you prepare to enter into this new year, do yourself a favor. Pull all of your energy into being the best version of yourself that you can be. Besides, all other roles are taken. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with a friend. Post about it on social media, or feel free to leave a rating and review. And of course, follow or subscribe to the Thrive with Joy podcast on your favorite streaming platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts, to make sure you're notified when new episodes are available. All new episodes are released on Mondays. Until next time, family, I pray that God bless you to live in peace and thrive with joy.